Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. Google is turning the screws on OpenAI. DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis has confirmed that Gemini will remain completely ad-free, subtly mocking OpenAI's need for ad revenue. It is the ultimate flex of a $200 billion search monopoly. But the biggest news isn't in Silicon Valley, it is in Davos. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei just dropped two bombshells. First, that selling chips to China is like selling nuclear weapons, and second, that AI might replace software engineers entirely in just 6 to 12 months. Also today, Elon Musk's lawsuit leaks Microsoft's secret control over the OpenAI board, a new startup raises a $480 million seed round, and YouTube declares war on AI slop. But before we dive into the rundown, are you drowning in dense legal text? Gemini is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. You are listening to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing.
The place where we try to strip away all the hype.
Exactly. We ignore the press release fluff and get straight to the signal. So if you are an executive trying to navigate your Q1 strategy, or maybe you're
a developer wondering if your skill set just hit its expiration date.
Yep, that's a big one today. Or if you're an investor just hunting for alpha in a, frankly, very noisy market, then you are in the right place. We are tracking the pulse of the machine.
And today, honestly, the pulse is erratic. It's really racing.
Erratic is putting it mildly. Today feels like a watershed moment.
It does. Usually when we sit down and do this, we're tracking incremental updates. A model gets a little bit faster. A benchmark improves by, 2%?
Right. A new API wrapper launches that saves 5 lines of code.
Exactly. Today, we're looking at structural shifts. We are talking about the fundamental economics of the internet changing before our eyes.
And geopolitical lines being drawn not in sand, but in silicon.
And maybe the biggest one, a total reevaluation of what human labor is actually worth in the marketplace.
It is heavy stuff, and we have a massive stack of sources to get through today. So let's map this out for you right at the top. We're breaking this deep dive into 4 strategic pillars.
Okay.
First, the business model war. Google has effectively laid siege to OpenAI. They're playing the no ads card.
While OpenAI is being forced to test them.
Precisely. So we're going to unpack whether this is benevolence on Google's part, or if it's a ruthless starvation strategy designed to bleed their competitor completely dry.
And I think we can give a little spoiler alert. When trillion-dollar companies get involved, it is never just benevolence.
No.
It is about unit economics, it's about building moats, and it's about crushing your competition's runway.
Absolutely. Okay, second, we are taking you to Switzerland. The Davos Warnings are coming in loud and clear.
This is the big one.
Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. He dropped 2 bombshells at the World Economic Forum. One regarding, and I'm quoting here, nuclear-level geopolitics with China. And another on the death of software engineering as we know it. And he put a terrifyingly short clock on it.
The timeline is what makes it so jarring. He said 6 to 12 months.
6 to 12 months. It's unbelievable.
It really is. That timeline is the key variable. It takes this from a futurist philosophy discussion.
Yeah, something for 2030.
Right. And it turns it into a Q2 hiring freeze discussion. It transforms the abstract into the terrifyingly immediate.
Okay, pillar number 3, we have the leaks. Internal documents from the Musk versus OpenAI lawsuit have finally surfaced.
And they are juicy.
They confirmed the shadow board theory regarding Microsoft and OpenAI.
Yeah.
We finally have the smoking gun on who was actually pulling the strings during that governance crisis in 2023.
Yeah, we're finally getting to see the text messages.
And fourth, we have to do a bubble check. There's a startup. It's called Humans. It just raised nearly $500 million.
In a seed round. I still can't get over that.
They needed nearly $4.5 billion.
For a company that is, a toddler in terms of age?
Not even. It's 3 months old.
Yeah.
So we need to decide if that is peak insanity or if it's actually a rational bet on talent scarcity in a winner-take-all market.
It's a huge question.
So Our mission today is simple. We aren't just reporting the headlines. We are decoding the strategic implications behind them.
Let's dive in.
All right, we are starting with Pillar 1, the business model war. The news hook here comes straight out of Davos, and it's a big one. Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, he went on record.
It did.
He confirmed that Gemini will not have ads anytime soon.
Which is a statement that lands like a cannonball because it comes just a few weeks after OpenAI started testing ads in the free tier of ChatGPT.
Exactly. So on the surface, this looks like a simple product decision. We want a clean user experience.
Right.
But reading through the analysis you've provided, you think this is actually, it's aggressive warfare. Why?
It is absolutely warfare. I mean, to understand this, you have to look at the balance sheet, not the user interface.
Okay.
You have to understand how these companies keep the lights on. Google earns, roughly $200 billion a year from advertising.
Mostly from search and their new AI overviews.
Right. It's a massive self-replenishing war chest. And Hassabis was explicit about this in his comments at Davos. He basically said, we have enough money that we don't need to monetize Gemini directly right now.
Which is a luxury OpenAI simply does not have. I mean, they're a startup, a massive one, sure, but they don't have a 20-year-old money printer sitting in the basement.
Precisely. And that's why this is a classic starvation strategy. You have to think about the unit economics of a large language model query.
Right, it's not free. Every time I type a question.
It's incredibly expensive. Every single time you ask a question, a GPU has to spin up, electricity is burned, huge amounts of water are used for cooling. That inference cost is very, very real.
So OpenAI has to pay NVIDIA and their cloud provider for that compute.
Every single time. And if they don't have a $200 billion search engine subsidizing those costs, they have to monetize the user immediately.
And that leaves them with what? Two options.
Two options. Aggressive subscriptions, which they're already doing with ChatGPT Plus, or inevitably ads for the free tier.
So OpenAI is basically backed into a corner where they have to degrade the user experience with ads just to pay the bills.
While Google can afford to keep their product pristine, pure, ad-free.
It creates this bifurcation of the market, doesn't it?
Totally. Imagine you're a user a year from now. You have two assistants available. Assistant A gives you the answer instantly, cleanly, no distractions. Assistant B answers your question, but then follows up with, by the way, since you asked about hiking, here are 3 sponsored boots from REI.
Or here's a sponsored link for a travel agent who can book your trip.
Exactly. And over time, what happens? The clean experience becomes associated with quality, with luxury, with efficiency.
And the ad-supported experience becomes the budget option, the cheap one.
It feels cheap. Google is betting they can make clean AI the standard expectation in the market, which makes OpenAI's free product feel subpar by comparison.
It's a bit like the early days of cable versus broadcast TV, or maybe paid apps versus those freemium games that are littered with ads.
That's a great analogy. But isn't there a huge risk for Google here? We've seen in our notes that cannibalization is the word that Wall Street keeps throwing around.
Right. If Google makes Gemini too good and too clean, don't they risk destroying their own search ad revenue? If I get the perfect answer from Gemini, I'm not clicking on a Google search link, which is where they make their money.
And that is the tightrope they have been walking for 3 years now. It's the very reason they were perceived as being slow to respond to ChatGPT initially.
Yeah.
They were terrified of breaking their golden goose.
So what changed?
I think they figured out how to have their cake and eat it too. Look at what they've done with AI overviews within Google Search. They've managed to sneak ads in there pretty successfully. But for Gemini, the standalone chat interface, they are taking a loss leader approach.
Explain that. What does that mean in this context?
It means they're willing to lose money on every single Gemini interaction. They'll burn cash on inference without any ad revenue coming in because it achieves a more important strategic goal.
Which is?
Preventing users from migrating to ChatGPT. It is far better for Google to lose, say, a few cents on your query than to lose you, the user, entirely to Sam Altman. It's a defensive moat built with cash.
Wow. And that brings us to the distribution piece of this war. Because, having the best model is one thing, but getting it in front of people is a whole other battle.
And this is where Google might have just played a checkmate move.
We have confirmation now on the Apple partnership. Gemini is going to power the next generation of Siri.
This is the move that changes the entire board. We talked about this when the rumors were flying, but now that it's solidifying, the implications are they're huge. Apple controls the most valuable real estate on the planet.
The iPhone home screen. the action button.
The device in everyone's pocket. By securing that slot, Google solves its distribution problem overnight. If Gemini is the brain behind Siri, billions of users will be using Google's AI without ever opening a Google app.
And OpenAI can't compete with that.
Oh, could they? And because Google has that ad revenue war chest we just talked about, they can offer Apple a deal that OpenAI just couldn't possibly match financially.
It's like their existing search deal, but for AI.
Exactly. Remember, Google pays Apple something like $20 billion a year just to be the default search engine in Safari. They are almost certainly structuring a similar massive deal for AI.
So it's a squeeze play. It's a pincer movement. OpenAI is being squeezed on one side by Google's free and clean product,
And on the other side, by Google locking up the most important distribution channel in the world, the iPhone.
which forces OpenAI to lean heavily into where do they go? The enterprise.
They have to go up market. They have no choice. They have to lean into enterprise B2B, selling to the Fortune 500, or they have to become even more reliant on Microsoft.
And as we're going to discuss in a bit, that reliance on Microsoft is becoming a very, very complicated thing.
It really is. But essentially, what this whole strategy does is it threatens OpenAI's viability as a dominant consumer brand. If they become the ad-riddled chatbot, they lose that cultural cachet, that magic they built in 2023.
It's fascinating. In 2023, ChatGPT was the magic trick that amazed everyone. In 2026, it risks becoming the utility bill you try to avoid because of all the commercials.
Well said.
Okay, let's shift gears. We're moving from corporate warfare to something with even higher stakes. Segment 2, the Davos Warnings.
This was, without a doubt, the heaviest session at the World Economic Forum. I mean, you could feel the mood in the room visibly change when Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, took the stage.
He did not mince words. Let's start with the geopolitical angle, because there's been a ton of debate about tariffs and trade wars. But Amodei took it to a completely different level.
He did.
He criticized President Trump's recent policy on allowing certain AI chip sales to China. And the analogy he used, it was so visceral.
He compared selling high-end GPUs to China to selling nuclear weapons to North Korea.
Okay, let's just stop there for a second. That is not the language of a trade dispute. That is framing a computer chip as an existential weapon of mass destruction.
It is. And we need to really parse why he uses that specific language. He isn't saying the chip itself explodes. He's saying that the intelligence these chips can generate is a national security asset of the highest order.
Right. It's about the capability it unlocks.
Exactly. If you believe, as Dario Amodei clearly does, that we are on a steep curve towards artificial general intelligence AGI, systems that are smarter than any human at any cognitive task, then the nation that gets there first controls everything.
What does everything mean in this context?
It means they control cybersecurity decryption, they can break any code, they control bioweapons research and defense, they control economic modeling, predicting and manipulating markets. They control automated warfare, from drones to cyber attacks.
So if you sell them the chips, you're not just selling a product, you're handing over the keys to the kingdom.
You're handing over a decisive strategic advantage. He is signaling that the era of an open market for high-end compute is over. It's dead.
So we're moving into a bifurcated world.
A completely bifurcated world. There is now the Western stack, NVIDIA, TSMC, the US, Europe, and there's the Eastern stack, China, desperately trying to build their own.
And if you're an investor or an executive listening to this, what's the takeaway?
The takeaway is that your supply chain is now a geopolitical minefield. You can't just buy a pallet of H200s and ship them wherever you want anymore. The government is stepping in because the CEOs of the labs themselves are going to them and saying, this is a weapon.
It really puts the tech war into a much starker perspective. It isn't just about who has the faster phone anymore.
It's about who controls the very substrate of intelligence itself.
But Amodei didn't stop there. He pivoted from geopolitics to the labor market. And this is the part that I think probably caused some heartburn for a lot of our listeners who work in tech.
The death of the coder prediction. It was a stunning moment.
He said we are 6 to 12 months away, not 5 years, not a decade. 6 to 12 months away from AI models doing most, maybe all, of what software engineers do end to end.
And that phrase end-to-end is the most critical part of the entire statement. We need to define that for the audience.
Right, because there's this misconception that AI just writes little snippets of code, like, write me a Python function to sort this list.
Yeah, that's what we have now with tools like GitHub Copilot or Cursor. It's a fantastic autocomplete on steroids. It helps, But it doesn't do the job. It's an assistant.
It's a pair programmer.
A very fast pair programmer. That is the junior developer model. What Amade is talking about is the senior engineer loop.
Okay, break that down. What does the end-to-end loop look like?
End-to-end means you give the AI a JIRA ticket, a vague business requirement, like add a feature that allows users to export their profile data as a PDF. The AI doesn't just write a function. It understands the context of the entire code base.
So it knows the database schema, the APIs?
All of it. It writes the code for the new feature, then it writes the unit tests for that code. It runs the tests fail because they always do the first time. The AI reads the error log, understands what went wrong, and debugs its own code.
So it's the self-correction part that's key.
It is the autonomy loop. It rewrites the code, runs the tests again, the tests pass, and then it pushes the code to the staging environment for review. That whole process, from ticket to deployment, without a human writing a single line of syntax.
And if that loop works reliably, say even 90% of the time, the economic value of a human who just types syntax goes to zero.
It goes to zero. And it's not just Moat saying this. Ryan Dahl, the creator of Node.js, he corroborated this. This guy is a legend in the developer community.
The runtime that powers, what, half the modern web?
At least. He said, and I'm quoting directly, writing syntax directly is no longer the job. When the person who built one of the most important software platforms of the last 15 years tells you that coding is over, you have to listen.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate here for a second. We have heard the no-code promise for a decade now.
We have.
We've heard outsourcing will kill coding for 2 decades. Why is this different? Is this just fear-mongering? Is it hype to sell Anthropic's new Claude Code product?
I mean, there's always a marketing element, of course, but the difference this time is the semantic understanding. Previous no-code tools were just complex logical systems. They didn't actually understand your intent.
They were just fancy flowcharts.
Exactly. Large language models understand human intent. The friction of translating the thought, I want a blue button here that saves the user's name to the database, into functional code is evaporating. The machine finally understands the goal, not just the command.
So if I'm a listener and I'm a senior software engineer earning a nice 6-figure salary, do I panic? Do I quit my job and go become a goat farmer?
You don't panic, but you have to pivot. And you have to pivot immediately. The era of the ticket taker, the developer who just waits for a detailed spec and then turns it into code, is over. That value is gone.
So where does the value shift?
The value shifts entirely to 2 roles: the system architect and the product manager.
Can you distinguish those for us?
Sure. The system architect is the person who knows how to stitch all the systems together. They understand security, scalability, database design, cloud infrastructure. The AI can write the code for a microservice, but you need a human to tell it what the overall architecture of all the microservices should be.
And the product manager.
The product manager is the person who deeply understands the user's problem. They know what to build in the first place. The how is being automated at a shocking speed. The what and the why become the only human skills that matter anymore.
Demis Hassabis from Google, he had a slightly softer take on this, right? He talked about skill creation.
He did. It was a more optimistic, corporate-friendly framing. He admitted junior hiring is going to slow down.
Which is a polite way of saying it's going to crash.
It's going to crash, yes. But his point is that this lowers the barrier to entry for creation. It means a biologist who has a brilliant idea for a protein folding analysis tool can now build it themselves in an afternoon without needing to learn C++ boot.
So that's the skill creation part. It empowers non-coders.
It expands the pool of people who can build software. It democratizes the ability to create, which is great. But it doesn't help the person who spent 4 years on a computer science degree.
And for the enterprise, Satya Nadella put it in pretty stark terms.
He was brutal. He basically said big incumbent companies that are coasting on their large engineering teams are going to get schooled by someone small.
That's the core disruption threat.
It is. If a 3-person startup armed with these autonomous AI agents can do the work of a 50-person engineering department at a Fortune 500 company, then that incumbent's advantage, their massive army of developers, suddenly becomes a liability.
It just becomes overhead, a huge expense.
It's the Instagram moment all over again, where 13 people served millions of users, but on a much, much grander scale. It redefines the entire structure of the firm.
And the unit of production
is no longer the human hour, it's the compute cycle. And that changes every single spreadsheet in every single business in the world.
Speaking of spreadsheets and corporate maneuvering, let's move to segment 3, the leaks. This is all about the governance of the most important company in this space, OpenAI, and its relationship with Microsoft.
Yeah, this is the story that just refuses to die, and for good reason. It's really about who actually controls the future of AI.
So these internal documents from the Elon Musk lawsuit against OpenAI have been released. It's a treasure trove of emails, text messages, internal memos.
A lot of dirty laundry being aired.
It really is. First off, it clarifies some of the history. I honestly didn't realize that Microsoft actually lost OpenAI initially.
It's a fascinating bit of history. In 2015, OpenAI actually chose to go with AWS Amazon Web Services for their cloud compute. Because back then, Microsoft was still seen as the evil empire, or at least just uncool and bureaucratic.
Yeah.
They had to fight to claw OpenAI back in 2016.
So did they do it?
With a $50 million compute credit donation. That was the seed. Then came the big $1 billion check in 2019. The documents revealed just how terrified Microsoft was of lagging behind Google in AI. They viewed OpenAI as their only way back into the game.
But the real bombshell in these documents is the confirmation of the shadowboard theory. Can you just remind our listeners what happened back in November 2023?
Of course. It was a crazy weekend. Sam Altman was abruptly fired by the OpenAI nonprofit board. Chaos ensued. Nearly all the employees threatened to quit. Satya Nadella at Microsoft intervened. Sam was then rehired a few days later, and the old board was wiped out and replaced.
And at the time, Microsoft's public stance was that they were just observers. They claimed they had no direct control over the board's composition.
They kept their hands very clean publicly.
And the new documents say?
The documents say that was a polite fiction. We now have the actual text messages showing Microsoft executives, specifically their CTO, Kevin Scott, and Satya Nadella himself, screening potential new board members in real time during the peak of the crisis.
What do you mean by screening?
I mean, they were getting names of potential candidates sent to them and were effectively giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They were vetoing or approving the new directors via text message.
So legally, they don't have a seat on the board.
Yeah.
But functionally, they are picking who sits on the board.
Correct. In corporate law, there's a concept known as a shadow director. It's someone who isn't officially appointed, but whose instructions the official board is accustomed to following. These documents are pretty strong evidence that Microsoft acts as a shadow director for OpenAI.
Okay, but why does this matter to the average user or to the enterprise customer building on their API? Why should I care if Satya Nadella picks the board?
It matters because of two things: incentives and liability. If OpenAI is supposed to be a nonprofit guided by a mission for the good of humanity,
Right, that's their charter.
but their board is being handpicked by a for-profit, publicly traded corporation that needs to boost its quarterly earnings and stock price. Those two missions are in direct conflict.
It explains the intense pressure to monetize that we talked about in segment 1.
It explains everything. If Microsoft is pulling the strings, they want a return on that massive $100 billion plus investment. They are not in this for charity.
And the liability part.
From a regulatory standpoint, think antitrust, think safety compliance. This means that Microsoft and OpenAI are effectively one entity. Regulators in the US and the EU can no longer pretend they're separate. You cannot regulate them separately if they function as a single brain.
It strips away that independent research lab veneer. This is just big tech, plain and simple.
It is the Microsoft OpenAI complex. And anyone building a business on top of your API needs to understand that they are renting land from Microsoft, not from a neutral party.
All right, let's pivot. We've talked about the giants, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI. Now let's talk about the challengers. Segment 4, the bubble check. This story, I honestly had to reread the numbers 3 times this morning to make sure I wasn't seeing things.
It is an absolute jaw-dropper.
A startup called Humans, that's pronounced humans, and it just raised a seed round. Now, typically a seed round is maybe 2, 3, maybe $5 million bucks if you're lucky.
Yeah.
They raised $480 million.
And that's not even the craziest number. That round values the company at $4.8 billion.
For a company that is 3 months old, they barely have a functioning website. It's this 1999 all over again. It says pets.com. Are we at the absolute peak of the bubble?
It really feels like the dot-com boom, doesn't it? That level of insanity. But I think you have to look past the product and see what the investors are actually buying here.
And what's that?
They aren't buying revenue because there isn't any. They aren't buying a finished product. They're buying talent density.
Explain that concept. Who is in this company that makes them worth over $4 billion?
The roster is basically the 92 Olympic dream team of AI research. You have Andy Peng, who was a key researcher at Anthropic. You have Georges Herrick, who was Google's 7th employee and a legendary engineering mind. You've got top people from XAI, from Stanford.
So it's a super team.
It's an all-star team. The investors, we're talking SV Angel, NVIDIA, Jeff Bezos, Google Ventures. They are looking at this, and they are making a very simple calculation.
Who's this?
The number of people on planet Earth who can actually build the next frontier model, something that can compete with GPT-5 or Claude 4, is maybe 200 people, tops.
So it's a pure supply and demand issue for talent.
Exactly. It's the scarcest resource in the world right now. So if you can get 10 or 15 of those 200 people together in one room, that room is essentially priceless. The investors are front-running the market. It's an acqui-hire valuation paid in advance. They're buying the brains before the product even exists.
But there's a philosophical angle here too, right? Because Andy Peng, the founder, she left Anthropic for a very specific reason.
She did, and this is crucial. She explicitly pushed back against that replacement narrative we just heard from Dario Amodei.
The death of the coder.
Exactly. She noted that at Anthropic, the research goal was often autonomy, getting models to run for 50 hours completely alone to do a job. Humans is betting on the complete opposite.
The name says it all. Humans and.
Right. They are building what they call an intelligent group chat. The entire philosophy is that AI shouldn't be a solo agent that replaces you. It should be a team member that augments human collaboration.
How would that work in practice?
Imagine a Slack channel, but with an AI as a participant. It remembers the context of every conversation. It facilitates brainstorming. It pulls up relevant data on the fly. But it keeps the humans in the loop, making the decisions. It amplifies the team's collective intelligence rather than replacing individual team members.
So if Amodei and Anthropic are betting on automation, Humans of Ed is betting big on augmentation.
Yes. And the fact that the market is willing to place a $4.5 billion bet on the augmentation horse shows that smart money investors are hedging.
What are they hedging against?
They're hedging against a future that Amodei predicts. They're terrified he's right about automation, but they are desperately hoping Andy Peng is right about augmentation.
So it's a multi-billion-dollar hedge.
Yeah.
We'll fund the guys trying to replace everyone, and we'll also fund the people trying to help everyone, just in case.
That is the venture capital game in a nutshell. You bet on every number on the roulette wheel if you can afford to.
It is a wild validation of the human-in-the-loop concept, though. Even with all the hype about full autonomy, there is still a massive premium being placed on tools that empower people rather than fire them.
For now, yes. The big question is whether augmentation is just a transition phase on the way to full automation. But for the next 3 to 5 years, Humans is betting that human collaboration is still the bottleneck, and solving for that is worth billions.
Okay, let's move to our final segment, Rapid Fire. We're going to hit the high signal updates from around the industry quickly. First up, YouTube versus AI slop.
This connects directly back to our coding discussion. As the cost of generating content goes to zero, the volume of slop, which is low-quality AI-generated spam videos, goes to infinity.
Right.
So YouTube's CEO, Neil Mohan, he just came out with his 2026 roadmap. And fighting this AI slop is priority number one.
So if you were a content creator or a brand using YouTube, what does this mean for your strategy?
It means the arbitrage era is officially over. You can't just script 1,000 generic top 10 facts about history videos with GPT-4, voice them with 11 labs, and farm ad revenue anymore.
YouTube is cracking down.
They're deploying sophisticated classifiers to detect and nuke that content. The premium is shifting back hard to high fidelity and personality. If you don't have a unique human face or a distinctive voice, you are going to get filtered out as spam. The algorithm is being trained to punish generic AI content.
Interesting. Next up, Meta. We're hearing some mixed signals coming out of Zuckerberg's camp.
Yeah, this was interesting. So Meta's superintelligence labs reportedly delivered their first internal models. That's the good news.
What?
But their CTO, Andrew Bosworth, was surprisingly candid in a memo. He admitted that Llama 4, their next big model, faced a lot of criticism internally and needs significant post-training work.
And post-training work is just polite engineer speak for it isn't smart enough yet.
Or it's hallucinating, or it's misbehaving. It suggests that the scaling laws, the simple idea that just adding more compute always equals more intelligence, must be hitting some friction.
So even Meta is finding it hard.
Even Meta, with virtually unlimited compute and data, is struggling to find that next big step function change in capability. It's a reality check for the whole industry that progress isn't always a straight line up and to the right.
Hardware update. We finally have confirmation on the Gemini project with OpenAI.
Yes, Chris Lethane from OpenAI confirmed it. The so-called iPhone of AI, the physical device being designed by Apple's legendary designer Jony Ive, is on track for the second half of 2026.
H2 2026. That is just around the corner.
It is. And remember what we said earlier about Google and Siri locking up the iPhone? This is OpenAI's desperate attempt to break that stranglehold.
They need their own device.
They need their own hardware. It will likely be screenless, voice first, maybe an ambient device like a pin or pendant. They have to bypass the Apple and Google duopoly to get direct access to the user without paying a massive toll.
And finally, a quick but important update on safety and privacy. Age prediction.
This one is a little creepy, but probably inevitable. OpenAI is rolling out behavioral age prediction. They aren't just asking for your birthday anymore.
So what are they doing?
They are analyzing how you type, the syntax you use, what slang you use, and what times of day you're active to build a profile and determine if you might be a minor.
So the AI is profiling you and saying, you type like a teenager, so you're locked out of mature content.
Basically, yes. It is a privacy minefield for sure, but with regulations like GDPR and COPPA tightening everywhere, KYC, know your customer, is coming to AI.
So the days of anonymous access are numbered?
The days of anonymous, unrestricted access are ending. The internet is getting an ID card whether we like it or not.
Wow. All right, that brings us to the end of the stack. We have covered a lot of ground today. Corporate wars, geopolitical nukes, the death of code, and billion-dollar seed rounds. Let's zoom out. What is the synthesis? What's the one big picture here?
I think if you look at all the threads we pulled on today, the picture is crystal clear. The Wild West phase of AI is over. The industrial phase has begun.
Break that down.
1, business models are hardening. The free ride is ending. You're either going to pay with your money through subscriptions or you're going to pay with your attention through ads.
The labor impact is moving from theoretical to imminent. A Moat's 6 to 12-month timeline is a fire alarm for every single professional services worker. 3, governance is being exposed. The mask is off. These are corporate behemoths fighting for market dominance, not benevolent nonprofits trying to save the world.
Capital is fleeing to the extremes. It's either going to the trillion-dollar incumbents or it's going to these hyper-specialized talent clusters like humans.
It feels like the stakes have just been raised across the entire board. The timeline has accelerated, and the cost of entry, whether you're a company trying to compete or an individual trying to stay relevant, has just skyrocketed.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my final thought for you to chew on today.
Let's hear it.
We talked about 2 things. Google's infinite war chest that allows them to subsidize AI forever, and Dario Amadeus' prediction that the profession of coding dies within a year.
Right.
If both of those things turn out to be true, are we heading toward what I'd call a barbell economy for the entire tech and knowledge industry?
A barbell economy. What do you mean by that?
I mean that there are only 2 viable business models left in the world. On one end of the barbell, you are a trillion-dollar infrastructure incumbent. You own the silicon, you own the data centers, and you own the foundation models.
That's Google, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA.
Exactly. On the other end of the barbell, you are a super boutique, deeply human-centric consultancy. You don't sell code, you sell taste, you sell trust, you sell strategy, you sell connection.
So what happens to the middle?
The middle is the kill zone. The middle, the generic SaaS company, the mid-level dev shop, the average marketing agency, it gets completely crushed. The middle gets automated away.
So you either have immense scale or you have immense humanity.
Everything in between is a death trap.
Scale or humanity. Pick your lane.
And pick it fast.
On that note, take a look at your portfolio, take a look at your code base, and maybe check in on your team's most human skills today. We will see you tomorrow for another deep dive.
Stay curious.
That wraps up today's briefing. The signal for today is sovereignty. We are seeing a battle for sovereignty on every front. Google is using its financial sovereignty to squeeze OpenAI. Amadei is calling for national sovereignty over AI chips. And YouTube is fighting for the sovereignty of human creators against a flood of AI slop. The lines are being drawn, and in 2026, neutrality is no longer an option. Before we go, a reminder for the leaders listening. Are you drowning in dense legal text? Jamgamind is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.